everyone was like, you do realise Arsenal lost? And I went, what? I went, last time I saw it was 2-2, which shouldn't have even been the score because we were literally 2-0 up. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. To be honest, I just hope you're having a better week than Arsenal, because I feel like this hasn't been the best week for Arsenal, not even just for the women. Obviously the results, I'm going to get into that in a bit, they haven't really gone the way we wanted or the way I predicted, which obviously was 2 wins. That has not happened. And then even when you look at the men's, there's more injury to crucial players as well during their international break. So I just feel like there could be more morale. The vibe at Arsenal could be a little bit better this week. Sadly, it's not. And because I've committed to doing this podcast every single week, I was like, I'm going to have to talk about this. And luckily for you guys, well, I don't know if it's too lucky, but I'm doing this a day earlier on the Monday because, you know, we just want to get this out of the way. We don't want to dwell on this week too much because I feel like there's a few things that went wrong, but I think we can learn a lot from this week. And to be honest, before I carry on waffling about the week, let's just get straight into the warm-up poll, which this week, obviously, I've got to focus on the women's side because we've had 2 games from the women, one in the Champions League and one in the WSL. And the poll question focuses on that WSL fixture, focuses on the WSL table as a whole, because I feel like there's a lot of results in the last 2 weeks that have mixed up the league. It's made it so tight that I don't think it's easy to predict anything right now. So I basically wanted you guys to have your go at predicting. So I put out the warm-up poll question: who will end 2025 top of the WSL? Just a disclaimer before I start, I had to put only 4 options, so I just went with the teams that were the top 4 teams in the league right now, which is obviously Man City, Chelsea, Manchester United and Arsenal. Saying that, Spurs have the same points as Arsenal, but obviously Arsenal have a better goal difference, so they're higher up. And even London City Lionesses are only 1 point behind with 15 in 6th spot. So I feel like the top 6 is very tight, and even some results that happened this weekend, we saw Liverpool obviously get a point at Chelsea, we saw Spurs obviously get a point, so they're pushed higher up. West Ham won against Everton. We've got the bottom teams also getting points, so I feel like it's kind of become quite exciting in the last couple of weekends if you're a neutral fan. Obviously, this is the Arsenal Humans podcast, so I'm not too hyped about it, but I do just love how the WSL is getting a bit more exciting. I've spoken to a few guests on the Arsenal Humans fan zone, so obviously go back and check them out if you haven't already. And basically, we've spoken a lot about how the atmosphere of the WSL, it just doesn't seem as exciting. Obviously, there's been controversy with VAR, but also just the football itself. We're not seeing too many goals. We're not seeing too much excitement. And I do feel like the WSL heard us. And in the last couple of weeks, there's been so much excitement that you just don't even know who's going to win. So I do feel like this was a bit of a tricky poll question. Before I say my views and run through more of it as a whole, let's just take a look at the results. This is live. I literally posted this morning. And it's sort of gone, I'm looking at the poll results right now, it's sort of gone the way that I thought it would, which is a little bit biased. To be fair, if you want to vote for future polls, by the way, it's luce.case over on Instagram. And I do feel like my following on Instagram is mostly Arsenal fans, so it's gone the way that I kind of thought it would. So 15% of you said Manchester City will finish top, 14% said Chelsea, no one said Manchester United, and 71% said Arsenal. I'm going to just have to, put it down to the fact that my fan base is mostly Arsenal, because for me, I don't agree with this poll result. I think that Manchester City will finish top. I don't really see it too much changing in the next 2 games. I think what people don't realise is as much as there's 6 weeks left of 2025 basically. Is it 5-6 weeks left of 2025? It's gone so quick, something like that. But we're actually only playing 2 league games, so realistically not too much is going to change. It's got to be down to if there's a couple of draws maybe. If I just reel off the next teams that all the 4 teams that I mentioned are playing, City are facing Leicester and Villa, see no problem with them getting 6 points. Chelsea facing Everton and Brighton, kind of same situation, maybe could draw because their form's been a bit tricky recently. I don't see them dropping all points though, or losing any of those games. Manchester United face West Ham and Spurs, which I think maybe the tougher games out of the lot, so potentially, I'm hoping anyways, there could be some point drops there. And then Arsenal face Liverpool and Everton, which obviously Liverpool did just draw to Chelsea, but I do feel like we can get all the points. So realistically, in my opinion, at the end of 2025, I see it being Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United as the top 4. Obviously, that's just my opinion, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, whether you think that Chelsea will continue to drop points and get draws, whether Arsenal can actually win some games. United, how are they going to do? And City, are they just going to fly it ahead? Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. If you didn't get your chance to vote on the poll, because it was actually only up for a few hours this morning, so it was quite a short one today. But yeah, I thought we'd just start the episode like that, just looking at the UWCL as a whole, because I think there's been a lot of negativity, but realistically, we're still in a good spot, and I'm hoping we can finish the year in that Champions League spot in the top 3. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, let's move on to the whatever the weather section of the podcast, then to the games, and then to the predictions. So let's get into whatever the weather now. Okay, so this first feature, or to be fair, I don't know if you can say first feature because obviously I've just done the warm-up poll, but either way, this feature, I'm trying to do a few different ones as the podcast has gone along, trying to make it a bit more exciting whether you're listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, just trying to jazz it up a bit. Basically, this feature is called Whatever the Weather, and I think it's because obviously with my job I work in live shows, and I always see that at the start of each show there's always news and headlines, which involve the weather as well. And obviously the Angel, which is Arsenal's famous chant, famous song, or whatever you want to call it, that they sing at the start of each game is the Angel, which the famous quote is whatever the weather. So I was like, cool, let me add the news, the weather vibe in. And this is basically where I just say news for Arsenal for the week. That has happened, and obviously there's going to be some cloudy headlines. There might even be some rainy headlines, but hopefully, as always, there'll be more sunny headlines. And you know what? Let's start with a sunny one. So we've got 3 Gunners up for the Puskas and Martyr Awards. Obviously, the first nomination has got to be for Declan Rice for that unreal second free kick against Real Madrid in the Champions League last season. I mean, I feel like everyone knows exactly where they were. For me, I was actually in Barcelona watching it, which was so fun with all the Barcelona fans, and then seeing them score against Real Madrid. But those free kicks were crazy. I don't think anyone expected it. So I feel like right now, if you're an Arsenal fan, you were just picturing exactly where you were watching it and everything, because it's stuck in your memory. I think that's one of my favourite goals ever. So if Declan Rice doesn't win that award, then I don't know, it's a scam or something, because that goal has just stuck in all of our heads. The second nomination is Mariana Caldente for her curling effort, also in a Champions League game. This time it was in the semi-finals against Lyon, which meant that Arsenal progressed to the final of the Champions League last season. And guess what happened, guys? We won it. So obviously wouldn't have got there without the likes of her. Obviously the team as a whole, the coaching, the staff, the fans, everyone, but especially that goal. So shout out to Mariana for that, and very deserving of the award. Another Arsenal player deserving of that award would be Kyra Cooney-Cross, because she was nominated for her spectacular long-range strike in Australia's friendly against Germany back in October 2024. So hopefully there, out of those 3, we have at least one winner for one of the awards. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that is starting the whatever the weather off with a sunny headline. Sadly, you know this British weather. We're in the Premier League, we're in the WSL, it's all English football. You know the weather can't always be sunny. There's a bit of rain here. And that is because Gabriel was forced off with a muscular injury in Brazil's match against Senegal at the Emirates. He's basically had to pull out of international duty, and it has got a lot of people questioning, will he be out of the North London derby? I'm praying he's not, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see. So obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments below if you know anything that I don't know, but right now it seems to be a bit up in the air, not looking too likely. And obviously we've got to discuss that will be a big loss for us, because we've valued our centre-back partnership so much over the last few years, but especially this season with the record of how we went so many games without conceding. Our defence seems to be our standout feature in the league, and it is arguably the best in the league. So to lose one of those players, hopefully not for too long, but definitely for a big game like the North London derby, isn't looking too good for us. So that, I guess, has to go down as a bit of a cloudier, rainier headline. But I want to keep it positive. I want to keep this podcast episode as positive as can be. Obviously, I didn't really start the intro now looking back in a too positive light because of the results, but we do have some positive news coming out of the Emirates, coming out of Arsenal, and that sunny headline is that Leah Williamson is back properly training with the girls. She made an Instagram post about it. It kind of took off a bit. I feel like everyone was posting on their stories like, oh my god, this is happening. Everyone was going wild, and it sort of got me questioning another question from these whatever the weather headlines. will we actually see her back before Christmas? I'm not saying she's going to start because obviously we've only got about 4 or 5 fixtures before the new year. But I do feel like there's a good chance that she could come on and make a little bit of an appearance for about maybe 10, 15 minutes of the game. And that will give us so much hope going into the new year. So I'm really, really hoping for the benefit of us, for the benefit of her, benefit of everyone, that Leah Williamson will be back in that squad. So yeah, I guess they're the 3 headlines. 2 sunny, 1 slightly cloudy, rainier headline. But, you can't win them all. So anyways, let's move on to the games because we've got to talk about them. I know no one wants to because I don't even know what happened. I mean, yeah, you know what, let's just get into it. Okay. Where do I actually begin with this first game? Because I feel like I should be saying a completely different scoreline, completely different 3 takeaways from the game because, you know what, I'm gonna set the scene for you a bit. Obviously, the game I'm talking about, by the way, is Arsenal 2, Bayern 3. Should have done it the other way around because we were the away game. But anyways, Bayern 3, Arsenal 2. Let me set the scene. So I was at work, obviously doing my thing, working on the show, and then I was like, let me set up this Arsenal game because I feel like this could be a good one. I had a good feeling about it, and I wasn't disappointed in the first 45 minutes because I had my laptop next to my screen watching it 2-0 up in the first 30 minutes, and I was like, this is amazing. We're fueling that anger from that Chelsea VAR controversial game, whatever you want to describe it as. We're fueling that and we're putting it into a positive way. 2-0. I went on my lunch break, was like, let me just go for a little walk around London Bridge, let me just go along the Thames, just a nice scenic vibe, feeling confident in my side. Suddenly got some notifications on my phone, we were 2-2, and I was like, 2-2, what is going on? And then by the time I got back into work, everyone was like, you do realise Arsenal lost? And I went, what? I went, last time I saw it was 2-2, which shouldn't have even been the score because we were literally 2-0 up, and then suddenly I got back in, it was 3-2, and I was like, guys, are you joking me? What is going on? So I basically wrote out 3 points and 3 takeaways from this first game at half-time, thinking it would stay the same vibe. Did I jinx it? I'm sorry, I hold my hands up if I did jinx it. Because now I've had to completely change the 3 points. I still want to try and stay positive because we did obviously win a half, but we didn't win the whole game. So it's honestly pointless me saying we won a half. Yeah. Anyways, that was me, sort of a little bit of a story of where I was. Same as when I was talking about that Declan Rice goal, I feel like you're going to know where you were sat when you saw this final result. It's gone off on socials how everyone's like, oh my God, how has this suddenly happened? But let's get into my takeaways. And the first one, I'm starting off positive. It might go a little bit downhill from here. Can't make any promises. So the first half, I felt like we really, as I just said, really channeled that anger from the Chelsea game. And that's basically my first takeaway, which is our high press and our pressure, which obviously resulted in that Emily Fox goal. I feel like she deserves it. I feel like she obviously doesn't get on the score sheet too much being a defender. And I don't feel like she gets enough flowers. So it was really good to see her obviously get that goal. And that all literally came from our high press. And that basically caused both goals. I mean, obviously, my second takeaway is that we can always rely on Mariona for a screamer in the Champions League. Basically, when I say screamer, I just mean she's going from distance. And that's obviously in the whatever the weather section. I mentioned she's up for an award because of a screamer against Lyon last year. It's just what she does in the Champions League. I feel like that is Mariona Caldente's vibe, scoring those big worldies in these big games. Those 2 first takeaways are the same as what I got at half-time. And I reeled off a few more. But I had to delete them. I just kept clicking back on my keypad. Was really humbling. Because the third takeaway, you've got to give hats off to Bayern. They nailed the game. They completely knew what we were doing. And I think, actually, going 2-0 up, I always was like, oh, we're in control. We've got control of this game, we're dominant right now. But I think that's actually a scary position to be in because suddenly 1 goal, I always say 1-0 scary, but I think 2-0 is also just as scary because they're going to suss out that they've made quite a few mistakes. They're going to clean up those mistakes and they're going to come back at you. And that's what they did. They came at us faster. They came at us from behind and we were basically chasing long balls and trying to get the second ball. And it just didn't seem like Arsenal in the first half. It seems like 2 different teams completely played. I think from what any Arsenal fan is saying, what Slegers was saying is that Arsenal just weren't ready and weren't able to adapt, and that is something that we've really got to work on because we did take that lead and we almost sat back, but it's like we need to keep going for it and knowing that the other team's not going to stay the same if they want to win the game. So I guess, the third takeaway is hats off to Bayern because they adapted very, very well in that game. I think that's enough about the game. If you want to say anything, obviously fill my comments with anything to do with that game or the next game, because this game is just as confusing, I feel like. I'm going to be real from the get-go. Obviously, I'm talking about the North London derby, by the way. Spurs 0, Arsenal 0. From the get-go, I didn't actually watch the game because I was at the England netball, which was such a tense, exciting, fast-paced game. It was 61-58, England-New Zealand. We won. Obviously, the day before, it was the opposite scoreline. And it was just so exciting. And I was with my friend Meg, who I feel like if you've listened from the beginning, you'll know she is a big Spurs fan, and we've been to quite a few North London derbies together. This year we decided, let's not go to the North London derby, let's go to watch England netball. And to be fair, I'm so happy with my choice, because when we were looking at the updates, every so often we were just looking and it was like 0-0 still, 0-0. It just seemed like such a dull game from the updates we've seen on our phone and the notifications. I watched the highlights back, and yeah, I'm very happy with my choice of where I decided to go this weekend. I think the same can be said for a lot of Arsenal fans I'm chatting to, saying, yeah, the vibes were good in terms of seeing friends and stuff, but the actual what happened on the pitch, it just wasn't enough. And I guess, you know what, let me go with my first point. The build-up play is good from Arsenal, but our end product just isn't there. I honestly don't know why it's not there. I just feel like we were getting the ball. You had Kyra Cooney cross his free kick, which looked great. You had lots of crosses and shots from Olivia Smith. But then the likes of Blackstenius, I feel like we've seen it in the last few games, she's just not finding the net. She's having the opportunity, but she's just not taking it necessarily. It's not just her. I feel like obviously any of those players could have got on the score sheet and none of them did. I feel like Russo would have been in a good position. I just feel like we're really getting the ball. And when you watch the highlights, I kid you not, all of it is literally Arsenal shooting, Arsenal's chances. None of it really seemed to be Spurs on the ball, and that's why it's even more frustrating, because possession doesn't get you points, and that's something that if it did, we literally would have won like 10-0, but sadly it didn't. So I feel like we need to really work on the end product, not just this game. We've noticed it the last few games, if I'm being completely honest. The second point is that subs should be game changers, and they can be game changers if you use them in the right way. I feel like this is a continuous thing that I keep saying. I definitely said it on last week's episode that Chloe Kelly should be starting, or at least getting more game time. I'm not really sure why she isn't, because I feel like she is that game changer, but bringing her on in I feel like it was the 80th something minute, it's just too late. Like, I don't see how you can, as a player, get your mindset, warm up into the game and then have an impact, because you've obviously got a few minutes to adjust. She basically wasn't even given a few minutes because we were expecting her to just score straight away, so I don't get why that happened. I just feel like maybe rotation should come on sooner. Obviously, I'm not the manager. I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm doing, because I don't, but as a viewer, we want to see something change, because if it's staying 0-0, you've got to change something up quicker. So that was obviously a bit frustrating to see. And I think the third thing, I speak a lot about the vibe of the club, and that's basically how I base a lot of things off the vibe. I mean, if you watch the fan zone I did with Daisy a few weeks back, you'll notice we were talking a lot about the tactical insight of the games that have been happening, what Slegers is doing right, what she's doing wrong, maybe what can be improved by players, or what the players are doing well. We said all of that, but then I ultimately said to her, I was like, it's the vibe, and we were completely agreeing that just something seemed off. Since I filmed that, we've won a lot of games in both the Champions League and in the UWCL, and then we also had that draw against Chelsea, which should have been a win for us. So we had a lot of momentum building basically, and then it just felt like this week we've sort of gone back and the vibe just seems flat. The fact that Chelsea drew this weekend, we should have capitalised on that. We could have gone above United and been in that Champions League spot in third place, and then pushing 1 or 2 points just below Chelsea. Morale just seems sort of a bit low. I don't really know what's going on, but I'm hoping that we've got an international break coming up after obviously this Champions League fixture this week that I'll get onto in a little bit. I'm hoping that something can change in terms of the vibe, and then ultimately going into the new year, we need to be thinking, right, we've only got 5-6 months to really do this. So, and there's going to be a lot of competitions to think about as well, not even just the league. There's going to be the Champions League, League Cup, FA Cup. There's a lot that's going to be put into the works in that moment, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Right, so we are already at the predictions section of this episode, which I feel like it's gone kind of quick, but I also feel like it's not been the most happy and uplifting episode, so I'm hoping we can end this episode on a high And obviously it's me, so I'm going to predict some realistic but positive outcomes. So the first game, which is happening on Wednesday, so only 2 days' time, is Arsenal versus Real Madrid. We're back in the Champions League. I'm hoping we don't have a repeat of what we saw last week in the Women's Champions League. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win. You know what? I'm not too confident because of our end product. I'm not too confident that we're going to be able to score loads and loads of goals against Real Madrid, but I do think we can find the net, and ultimately we should be the better side. Also, if we look at the bigger picture of the Women's Champions League, there's actually only 3 games we play before we decide who's straight through to the quarterfinals, who gets into the knockout playoffs to decide if they get through to the quarterfinals, and then who's just completely eliminated. Right now, Arsenal sat in 11th, and you've got to be in the top 12. So we're halfway through this little phase, basically, in the new league format, and we basically have to win our next 3 games. I'd love us to go straight to the quarterfinals. Realistically, I haven't actually figured out the points, but I don't think we could do that. But we want to go as high up so that you basically have seeded and unseeded in that section. So we obviously want to be in the seeded part. Gives us a bit more of an advantage. So fingers crossed we can do that, but we have to get these wins. It doesn't even have to be nice football. It doesn't have to be big 5-0 wins. It just needs to be that 1-0. So I'm praying we can get that 1-0 win. So yeah, I'm hoping it's a positive week for the women. I feel like we need it. We need some momentum before we go into that international break. I also hope that positivity carries on through till Sunday at 4:30 p.m. because it is the North London derby. This North London derby better go better than the last North London derby did. I want to see lots of goals. I'm not saying too many. I just hope they're all Arsenal goals, if I'm being honest. My prediction is a 2-1 win to Arsenal. It's always a tight game. The atmosphere is always so exciting for this, and Spurs always really show up as well. So it's not an easy win by any means. So I do think that, yeah, a 2-1 win would be great. I think it, obviously, if we don't have Gabriel, Mosquera can step in. We've got Nkapie. We've got options at the back, but obviously we'd love Gabriel to be there. So hopefully he's back. I feel like not only just him, but we've got a return potentially of quite a few players. I did mention it in last week's episode. We've got the likes of Havertz that could come back in. Gyökeres could slot back in. We have a lot of players, actually, when I'm just thinking off the top of my head, that could potentially come back from injury in this game. So I feel like this could be actually quite an exciting game. I'm going to go 2-1. Obviously, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think. I have gone for 2 wins again. Realistically, I do think that the North London derby could be a draw, but I want to stay positive. I do want to manifest a win. So hopefully that can happen, because I do feel like most of the boys have had a good international break as well. So hopefully that can carry on that momentum and confidence. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That brings me to the end of the episode. I feel like it wasn't the most uplifting one. I'm going to be real. I'm very sorry about that. I tried to add some few positive moments in the takeaways, as well as obviously in the warm-up poll and in the whatever the weather section. So hopefully that's a bit more positive. And obviously the predictions, I'm predicting 2 wins. So hopefully at least one of them can come true. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But if you are enjoying this and you haven't yet followed on Spotify or subscribed on YouTube, then why not give it a go to join this community that I'm building over the last year. I'm really enjoying doing these, and I hope you enjoy watching or listening. I guess that's all from me, to be fair. Not really much else I could say, apart from I hope it's a better week for Arsenal this week than it was last week. That is basically all I think all us Gooners are hoping for.